Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Patrick Diamond. I'm from MIT Solve. We're one of the organizers of the Reimagining Pathways to Employment Challenge. And I want to thank you all for tuning in for this info session and office hours Zoom meeting. We have a couple objectives today, but overall, we want to just give you a chance to learn more about the challenge and hear from some of the organizers of the challenge. We have an amazing group of partners involved with this work, and you'll hear from some of the organizers and leaders around this challenge today. So hopefully at the end of this, you have a better sense of what this challenge is all about and if it's a good fit for you and your solution or innovation. And then we'll also have a chance to answer your questions. We know that you probably have questions about eligibility and kind of what's offered. So we'll address some of that in our remarks at the beginning, but I do encourage you to use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen if you do have a question, and we will either answer those kind of on screen or in chat, depending on kind of the nature of the question. So without further ado, I want to invite Angela Jackson to give us some opening remarks here. Angela Jackson is one of the partners at New Profit and the lead for the Future of Work program, the Future of Work initiative at New Profit. And that initiative seeks to close the career readiness gap for workers experiencing low wages. It's also a really pressing issue, of course, right now because of the pandemic. So, you know, coincidentally, we had this challenge launching right around the time of the pandemic, and the timing is good because we want to make sure that this challenge is responsive to the moment we're in. Angela is also one of the key partners for the Reimagining Pathways to Employment Challenge and a related challenge called the X Prize Rapid Reskilling Prize, which maybe we can learn a little bit about today as well. So I'll turn it over to Angela to share her perspectives on the Future of Work Grand Challenge and why this challenge and why we're here today.
Excellent. Patrick, thank you again for having me today. I'm really excited to be here and to have our first open office hours. So as Patrick mentioned, I'm Dr. Angela Jackson. I'm a partner at New Profit, where I lead the Future of Work investments and strategy. And really, when we think about the future of work, as a philanthropy, we like to think about who's actually not going to be included in the benefits of the future of work. We know that automation, artificial intelligence, lots of new emerging technologies are making work efficient. And that means that a lot of the jobs that used to be available are not anymore. And we've really seen that ushered in today with COVID-19. So when we think about our future of work, we're thinking about how we can use technology to actually help connect people with jobs in a living wage. And we're really excited about this partnership with MIT and X Prize because it's surfacing two things. One, it's thinking about how do we accelerate training? And then two, with MIT, with the pathways to employment, is what needs to be true once you're skilled to actually be placed in a job. And what's fantastic about this challenge, with the support of our sponsors, which include Walmart.org, Strata Education Network, the Joyce Foundation, Accenture, and also the Fossil Foundation and Lumina Impact Ventures, we are able to offer grant money to finalists to actually validate their solutions with workforce boards, which we'll dig in today. And we think that this is an amazing opportunity because workforce boards, if you haven't heard of them, and I'm going to introduce a colleague that will tell you a bit more, they are where real people live. They're in actual communities. So instead of waiting people to come to technology, we have the opportunity with this challenge to actually go to them. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce my colleague, Josh Corpus from Jobs for the Future, who will give a bit of background on workforce boards and really why we've selected them as our lever of change for this initiative.
Hey team, I'll say hi here, and then Patrick, if you want to hit on some of those other slides before doing so. As Angela said, I'm with Jobs for the Future. I actually spent my time working at the local level for the Three Rivers Workforce Investment Board in Pittsburgh. I spent about the last 8 years or so at the National Association of Workforce Boards and joined JFF Labs 2 years ago, specifically with the intention of trying to really capitalize on the opportunity that is inherent in the public workforce system and finding ways for workforce boards and American job centers to better leverage new technologies so that those efficiencies and some of the gains that we've seen achieved through new technology in traditional higher ed and in companies, how those might also benefit the 20 million people that walk through the doors of American job centers and benefit from the services provided in the workforce system day in and day out.
Great, thank you, Josh. And we'll come back to you in a little bit, but first I wanted to tell you just some information about this challenge and some of the partners. So you met Angela, you met Josh. There are others involved with this challenge as well. The Mortgage Family Foundation is a foundation that invests in leaders and organizations that are reimagining solutions to some of today's biggest challenges. And they're one of the sponsors of this challenge as well. So they won't be speaking today, but you can keep that in mind. And if you do apply, you'll get familiar with their organization too. And then of course, New Profit, the organization that Angela is from, a nonprofit venture philanthropy organization that backs breakthrough social entrepreneurs who are advancing equity and opportunity in America. New Profit also has lots of initiatives, and this is one that we're happy to partner with them on. Also, MIT Solve. MIT Solve is the organization that I work at. We are an initiative of the university that has a broad mission to solve the world's most pressing challenges. And we do that by connecting social entrepreneurs with an incredible network of foundations, corporations, and other organizations that are interested in supporting social entrepreneurship. And we work to connect those organizations with really transformational tech-based social entrepreneurs. So yeah, those are some of the three partners. There are other partners involved too, who you'll get to know as we move forward. So this challenge asks a simple question that has a lot of different answers to it. How can workers in the United States attain the knowledge and learn the skills needed to access sustainable jobs and livelihoods in the new economy? There's a lot of pieces to this challenge, so we'll go through that and kind of what these words mean and to put them in the proper context. But first, I wanted to talk about the timeline for the challenge. It's typically a question that we get when we launch them. On June 22nd, we did launch this challenge, which means that we opened it for submissions. And indeed, many people have started to apply, and that's great. The challenge is actually open from July 22nd to November 9th. And we invite people and teams from all over the US to submit their ideas, submit their solutions or projects as soon as possible. And the reason that we do that is because Solve's online platform allows for collaboration, commenting, and revisions. So just because you share it doesn't mean you can't come back to it. So you can definitely edit it between now and November 9th. So if you're on the fence about whether or not to submit an idea, we encourage you to get started and answer the questions that you're sure about and come back to it later. Between now and October, we will have what we call Solvathon workshops to help clarify and improve your submissions. They're about 3.5 hour long virtual workshops that we'll host. If you're a potential applicant, they're built for you to help you think through some of the really essential questions that we ask in the prompts in the application to the challenge, and to help you, strengthen your project to make sure that you're best able to compete in the process. So we'll tell you more about the dates and whatnot for those, but those are open. We're having a number of them focused on different regions between now and October. So you'll hear more about that later in this session. We do have a deadline of November 9th, which will be the deadline to actually submit your final version of your solution. And then we'll be doing a series of kind of reviews and evaluations of those submissions between November and January. All of this will culminate in a virtual pitch event for a smaller group of finalists. Probably around 10 solutions will be invited to be finalists, maybe more, maybe a few less. We will have that event in which the finalists will be invited to actually pitch their ideas to a panel of expert judges. And those judges will be the ultimate decision makers on which solutions we move forward with. All of this is listed on our website for reference, so don't take notes or anything like that, no need. And we'll share all this afterwards as well. So I'd like to dig in deeper into the dimensions of this challenge. And when I say dimensions, I mean the components of the challenge that we are looking for. These suggest the types of solutions and how they're approaching this challenge. It helps to kind of establish a scope for the challenge. So I'll mention, I think, 4 or 5 of them that we're looking for. And you should keep in mind that you don't need to necessarily address every single one of these dimensions, but you do need to address at least one. The first one is to drive resources and support to Black, Indigenous, Latino, Latina, and Latinx entrepreneurs and innovators who we know receive a fraction of funding from both the nonprofit and for-profit sectors. There's a lot of reasons for this, but we know that this is the truth. Despite their frequent proximity to workforce challenges and the systems-focused solutions needed to solve them. So we're looking solutions that serve these populations and these communities because we believe they're best positioned to solve this challenge for those communities. We're also looking for solutions that increase access to high quality, affordable learning, skill building, and training opportunities for those entering the workforce or transitioning between jobs or facing unemployment. We know those are huge issues right now and have been structural issues for a long time, but we are looking for solutions that address the workforce challenges in this way. Some other dimensions that we're looking into are solutions that enable learners to make informed decisions about which pathway or in which job, which career path is best for them. There's a lot of information out there and it's not always established and put together in an easy to access manner. So we're looking for solutions that help people kind of figure out their path forward, including promoting the benefits of non-degree pathways to employment. So in other words, looking for ways that people can access sustainable incomes and livelihoods without necessarily needing to go into a formal higher education degree program. We're also looking for solutions that will implement competency-based models for lifelong learning and credentialing. There are a lot of jobs that do require certifications, credentialing, and so on in order to access those opportunities. And there's a lot of different barriers and kind of checklists that people have to follow in order to access those jobs. So we're looking to build up competencies that maybe are applicable across those different job opportunities and career opportunities. We are also looking for solutions that will match current and future employer and industry needs with education providers, workforce development programs, and diverse job seekers. There's always, from the employer side, we know that many employers complain and say that they don't have access to the right sources of talent. So we're looking to support innovations that can help bridge that gap through maybe a technology or a different approach that shares information across supply and demand in the labor force. So those are the challenge dimensions, and I invite you, as you have questions about these, if there's a specific one that you want to hear more about, do ask in the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to those questions a little bit later. Next up, we have eligibility. This is an important piece here. We do have some requirements for this challenge, and these requirements speak to some of the pilots and that we're looking to establish later on and once we actually select the solutions. So we do require that the projects that submit have at least a working or tested prototype. So you need to have whatever your innovation is, whether it's a program or an app or a technology, broadly speaking. It needs to be, in practice. It needs to have a working, tested prototype. Ideas are great in general, and we love them at MIT Solve. But for this challenge, we will be selecting projects that are at least a prototype at that stage. There's a geographic focus for this challenge on the United States. So we will be selecting solutions that are currently deployed in the US or operating somewhere else, but have specific plans for entering and expanding to the United States. This again speaks to how we're going about the pilots and the award money at the selection event. Individual applicants must be at least 18 years old, and teams must have at least one member of the team who's 18. We have had younger folks apply to the challenge too, and that's great as long as there's one 18-year-old or older on the team. Next, we have the judging criteria. There's more information about these criteria on Solve's website, which you can see in the chat. But we know that these criteria are what make the best solutions for this challenge. They are alignment, potential for impact, scalability, feasibility, innovative approach, and diversity. And what we do is the panel of judges who we've assembled, which will be about 20 people, and you can also review who those judges are on the website. Those judges will evaluate each solution for based on these criteria. So by alignment, we mean the solution addresses the challenge as it's been set forth. So those dimensions, your solution needs to address the challenge and speak to one of those dimensions or more than one of those dimensions. Potential for impact means that the planned solution needs to have potential or existing impact on the lives of people and communities, and the innovation needs to drive economic growth nationally. So we don't want to just select a project that is not focused on social impact and impact of the target communities of this challenge. We're also interested in solutions that scale well, and scale can mean a lot of different things, but we want to make sure that the solution is positioned to affect the lives of more people in more communities. And again, this will be really important for the pilots that we'll mention later. Feasibility, this means that the solution needs to have a plan for financial and operational success. So we do have some questions in the application about that. And that speaks to the kind of strength of your solution and the team, and if it's able to actually deliver on some of the plans that you might have. Innovative approach. This is a broad term, and we define it broadly. So we want solutions to be either new, a new application of an existing solution, a new business model, a new process for solving a challenge, and the team needs to identify almost like a competitive advantage that you have compared to others. So when we say innovation, it means a new approach, really, a new take on a stubborn problem. Most people who apply do well in this category because we are a community of social entrepreneurs who got into this work because we saw a problem and want to address it in a new way. We also have diversity, which is a really important criteria for us. This means that the solution and the solution team, the people who are on the team, need to embody and address diversity in its many forms throughout the application. Some of the things that we're interested in are a focus on disinvested communities. Those could be interior US states, underserved workers, communities of color, and other groups and communities that have historically, for a variety of reasons, been disinvested. That's our target for this challenge because we want to make sure that we're reaching communities where the need is greatest. Diversity also means that the solution team is well positioned to deliver this solution. This can mean a lot of different things, but we do have some questions on the governance structure of the organization, the solutions that are applying. We want to hear more about your leadership team and the backgrounds of people who are making decisions at your organization. And we want to see how that relates to the communities that you are serving, because we believe that solutions and teams that reflect the communities that they serve are best positioned to solve the issues that those communities have. And on a related point, team diversity. So the background of the team, the leadership and management team, the executive director or executive member of the team, where we ask some questions about that, and we'll consider that as we evaluate solutions as well. So that's the judging criteria. Again, you can check it out more on our website. There's lots of information on there. Lastly, I have some kind of more logistical points and a note on the prize funding before I turn it over to Josh. The logistics, the things that you should know is at least 5 teams will be selected, potentially more, depending on if we are able to attract more funding for the teams that are selected. And each team will be awarded a minimum of $100,000 in grant funding to really deliver on the pilots that you're about to hear. That funding will be made available after the virtual pitch event on January 25th, 2021. And we'll have more details about that as we get closer to the event. But keep that in mind that we'll have that grant funding will be awarded to each team. It's quite a bit of money, but it does have some strings attached. But those strings aren't really, grant required. They're not like stipulations that are a hurdle. You should really view them as an incredible opportunity to reach new consumers, new people, and new communities. I also want to mention prize funding and support. There is currently a $625,000 grant pool that could increase. And the validation pilots that I mentioned will actually happen with what are called US workforce boards. Josh will tell you a little bit more about that. Lastly, there will be in-kind support from our partners from IBM, who will offer a range of in-kind as well as consultative services to the teams that are selected to help you figure out how these pilots might actually work. So I'd like to turn it over to Josh from Jobs for the Future, who's going to tell you a little bit more about US workforce boards. They're an amazing group, kind of a confederation or federation of organizations across the US that are working on this challenge and working on workforce issues in general. So Josh will tell you a bit more about that and then what we know about the pilots right now.
Thanks, Patrick. You can kick it to the next slide. Nobody needs to see my face twice right now. So as I briefly mentioned there upon Angela's introduction, I'm really excited, and JFF Labs are really thrilled to partner up with MIT Solve and New Profit on this work. As I briefly mentioned, JFF Labs and the work that I've been able to do at Labs has been predicated entirely around how we might build better bridges between the traditional systems of education and workforce development and some of the new and emerging applications of technology that so many of you on the line are creating. It's exciting to even see a few entrepreneurs that I recognize listed in the attendee list. So I hope to hear from y'all during the Q&A session. As Patrick mentioned, the U.S. workforce system is pretty significant in size, scope, and scale. There are over 538 local workforce development boards all across the country. These organizations, function in many ways the same as a traditional nonprofit that you all might have worked with in the past. They have a board of directors. That board of directors is primarily led by business leaders throughout the community that represent the local labor market needs and inform the decision-making and investments that workforce board makes throughout their region of purview. Each one of these organizations has a professional staff dedicated to the full-time support of that board of directors and the customers that they reach throughout the community. The primary authorizing legislation for these organizations, they are quasi-government. They are a function of a federal act known as the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. What came before that was the Workforce Investment Act, which some of you may have more familiarity with, which was put into legislation in 1998. But this is essentially the federal act that created local workforce investment boards. And it's primarily through this legislation that funding is also distributed. There are also a number of other state and federal programs that workforce boards benefit from. And we estimate that the local workforce system and local workforce boards manage upwards of $11 billion in state and federal job training funding alone, not to mention additional monies and additional funding that comes through partners in the corporate and philanthropic space. Go to the next slide. So as you can see here, workforce development boards have a very wide-ranging mandate. They are responsible for providing a variety of career services, including financial aid, skill assessment, job search and placement through job boards and other job search and acquisition tools and portals. There are also tens of thousands of career counselors and career navigators that are embedded within the system that provide one-on-one and face-to-face support to customers that come through the workforce system looking for advice on how and where to acquire new skills or connect to a job or find a new career. A lot of what we try to get to on that side of the equation in the workforce system is helping people actually connect with education and training programs that will help them acquire the new skills or prepare for a career that is both in demand within the region and also for which that individual is potentially well suited to be able to skill up and prepare for and acquire a job in. It's also really worth noting that the workforce development boards maintain very close relationships with the companies in their region, not only through the involvement of those companies on their boards of directors in many cases, but they also work in tandem with individual companies or more and more with conglomerations of companies that have a vested interest in a shared industry and are looking for opportunities to cultivate a workforce within the region that they operate that is equipped to do the job of today and do the job of tomorrow that those companies are looking for. So many of these organizations are also working to develop customized training with employer partners. We have traditionally seen those customized trainings done in partnership with community colleges and with other training providers within the region. But more and more, we are also seeing workforce boards explore opportunities to also team up with new types of training providers, e-learning providers, and I'm sure some of the kinds of training solutions that many of you are looking to devise as well. It's also kind of finally important to recognize that the workforce boards and the people that you'll be interacting with through these pilot sites maintain very close connections with other stakeholders within their community. So really working in a more comprehensive manner to find ways to work as industry, as economic development, as education, and as workforce to really develop comprehensive strategies for how to prepare their workforce of the jobs of today and tomorrow. And increasingly, those partnerships are looking for more technology-driven approaches to how they develop and deploy against these larger regional strategies. You can switch to the next slide. An important part of the workforce development system and really one of the primary mechanisms through which the Workforce Development Board provides service is the American Job Center. Some of you may have been introduced to these organizations as one-stops or career centers, but most commonly they're referred to as American Job Centers. There are over 2,500 American Job Centers across the country. That is more American Job Centers than there are Home Depots, than there are Bed Bath and Beyonds, than there are Chick-fil-A's. So this is an incredible network of organizations that exist in all 50 states, all 5 US territories, and are really providing that face-to-face, on-the-ground support to people that are, often out of a job, down on their luck, and looking for people and resources that can help them get back to work and help them connect to opportunities that allow them to pursue their dreams. I will also say that this number of 15 to 20 million people is an average number. We expect with some of the crises that's unfolding with unemployment related to COVID-19, that over the course of the next year, the American Job Center system will see a likely unprecedented number of job seekers of varying backgrounds coming through the doors of the centers, looking for opportunities to connect with work and connect with training, and do that in a way that that is expeditious and also results in a family sustaining wage and a job that is actually of high quality. So it's probably not too far off to guess that we may be approaching closer to 25 to 30 million people that will be knocking on the doors of the American Job Center over the course of the next year or two. You can go to the next slide there. As Angela mentioned there in her opening remarks, I think one of the most important things about this work and about this opportunity to really bring entrepreneurs and workforce boards together is to really reach people where they are, and to reach people that, quite frankly, technology has historically left out. Many of the individuals that the workforce system provides service to do not have the pleasure of having broadband at home. They may not own a computer. And just creating a .com website with some free e-learning and tools is not going to cut it. And it's not going to make their lives any better. So as we think about really how we go about understanding not only the work that the prize winners will be doing with the organizations that they're working with, but also the customers and the clientele that those organizations are trying to serve, I really encourage everyone on the line to keep some of these realities in mind, but also to recognize what an amazing opportunity this is for your company to really better understand a more diverse clientele of workers and learners, and really trying to create new ways for technology to truly level the playing field in many of the ways that I know that those of us that do this work would really like to see. You can go to the next slide there. So I think actually Patrick, just through some of the challenge guidelines that he outlined, really highlighted why it's so exciting and important to be teaming up with the workforce system and working with workforce development boards at this time in particular. Workforce boards were designed from the get-go to be attuned to issues of equity and access in their communities. They were designed from the get-go to challenge some of our preconceived notions around the value of a degree, and trying to push towards alternative types of learning, and trying to help workers and firms appreciate the importance of measuring skills and competencies. So I think that as we enter this work together, I'm really looking forward to seeing some entrepreneurs that are really excited about this opportunity to pilot, community-led, tech-driven interventions that really help us rethink how we deliver career services, how we deliver education and training, and ultimately how we develop more regional and national strategies for helping 35 million people either get back to work or get introduced to new training and new tools that can help them advance, their careers and the lives of their families.
Great, thank you, Josh. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Drew. I am also one of Patrick's colleagues for MIT Solve. So working very closely on this challenge with our partners, JFF and New Profit and MFF, which Patrick mentioned before. I wanted to quickly share about some of our upcoming virtual events that are related to this challenge. We're hosting a number of what we call Solvathon workshops, which are essentially multi-hour design thinking workshops. They're intended to help applications and help either current or potential applicants kind of think through their ideas, refine them through a number of design thinking processes that we'll walk through. So it's a chance, if you have an idea of a solution, if you're already coming in with an existing project or existing team and you want to further refine and develop your work and your ideas, these are great opportunities to meet some people, get some feedback, and think through more closely how to kind of design your application to meet the requirements of the challenge. So you can see in the chat, my colleague Gabby just listed the registration link for the upcoming Solvathons. We're hosting a number of them starting at the beginning of September. So there are 4 kind of regionally based Solvathons. So if you or your work is based in a particular area of the US, I would encourage you to sign up for one of those Solvathons. If the timing doesn't work, feel free to join another one. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it'll allow you to get some more feedback and meet other people that are working in similar regions. So you can bounce ideas off of them and get more feedback. And then more specifically on October 15th, for people with existing applications and projects and teams, we'll have a special Solvathon workshop designed to really give input and feedback from the New Profit Expert Workforce Board members. And so these are frontline workers that will be joining as kind of real world guides to give you feedback on your projects. It's a chance for you to run some of your work, your ideas, your methodology by people who would be potential beneficiaries of your projects. So that will happen in mid-October. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Let's see if I have anything else to say about Solvathons. I think that is pretty much it. Again, our first one is on September 3rd, and they'll run every Thursday from kind of September 3rd through the 15th. If you have any other questions or want to follow Solve along, here is some information about how to get in touch with me. And from here on out during this session, we will turn it over to our office hours portion. Patrick will be kind of manning this section, but if anyone has any questions that weren't answered in the previous slides that we all went through, please drop them in the Q&A chat. We know we just dumped a lot of information on you, so I'm sure there's some outstanding questions. And so our partners, Patrick and Josh and Angela, will be available to answer any questions. So Patrick, take it away. It looks like we already have a number of questions, so let's get started.
Awesome. Thank you all for those who have added them along the way. We'll just go through here and we'll figure out among the panel here who's best able to answer them. So we had a question from Danielle, maybe from Open Avenues, about can you apply to this challenge with a partner organization? So unfortunately, ask a clarifier, but if a partner organization means with an organization that you are partnered with, unless my panelists disagree here, yeah, we welcome kind of partnerships of multiple organizations to apply, so long as you are agreed upon the same solution and are working on the same solution already together. But that should be certainly fine. If you mean partner in terms of the partners of this challenge, so New Profit or MFF or whatnot, if you're already a grantee of that organization, you should also still be able to apply. This is a separate program of each of those organizations. We had a question from Megan Christensen. She asked about technology and what we mean by technology, especially because we have a question in the application about describing the core technology that you use, if applicable, and how that interacts with your solution. That is one of the questions that we have across all of Solve's challenges. We are interested in the role that technology plays in promoting social change, and we think it's an important tool and approach to delivering social change. However, technology means a lot of things to a lot of different people, just like innovation does too. And we define that very broadly. It can be a new take, it can be a new application of an existing technology. We want to make sure that you are using kind of an innovative approach in the work that you're doing, but we're fairly agnostic as far as what the technology looks like. I will say that technology usually goes hand in hand with scale, because you will need some type of tool or approach to make sure that your project or solution can reach more people. That being said, there's a lot of ways to do that, and that's what open innovation is all about. You'll let us know what your approach is. I'm not sure if Josh or Angela, you had any other kind of points on technology and how that factors into this challenge.
Patrick, I think you covered it from our end.
Great. So there's a question here about IP, so intellectual property, and how that would be disclosed in the working session, so probably the Solvathon workshops. So as you know, when you do apply, most of the questions that you submit actually get posted on Solve's website. That is, without going too into the weeds, is an approach called open innovation, which believes that everyone's work is strengthened when it is shared openly and without barriers. So we take that approach with our challenges. However, the questions that you answer there probably aren't that different than what you would list on a website or in public materials. So some people are a little sensitive about disclosing information. Ultimately, you have full control over what you post. So if you're totally uncomfortable with a question, you don't have to answer it. We do encourage you to complete the whole application though, because you'll be better positioned to compete. As far as intellectual property goes, none of the questions, I could be corrected, but none of the questions are so specific that you would be disclosing actual intellectual property, kind of code base or research that you've developed that's proprietary. So for the purposes of the application, that shouldn't be an issue. For the Solvathon workshops, which Rachel mentioned, the design thinking exercises that'll help you refine your work, those will be closed with just the team members who are participating. However, those team members may be new, you may have never met them before. But again, in the spirit of open innovation, we want to make sure that you're partnering and running these ideas by other people. So hopefully that answers that question about IP. Question about IP and the grant. Maybe this is more for Angela, kind of what New Profit's approach is to IP and your grantees.
Yeah, so we saw the question, who owns the project IP after the grant has been granted? So you, the entrepreneur, would own your IP. So we're giving you this grant. We want you to definitely validate with a workforce board, but after that, you would own it. And this is for nonprofit and for-profit entrepreneurs. And we hope that if you're for-profit, that you go on to monetize it. That would be a success in our regard.
Great. So from Bonnie, there was a question about trying to register for the event. Sounds like maybe a technical issue that we'll fix, but hopefully we do so. We'll also email out all the links to the Solvathons as well as a kind of a more robust description of what you can expect will happen, an agenda and so on. So we'll get to that. They are, starting I think next week through October, so there's many opportunities to get involved. Question from Tom about, are we expecting that the WDB, that's a new acronym for me, Workforce Development Board, will be an active member of the team or simply offering an endorsement of the project? That's firmly in Josh's camp.
Angela, correct me if I get anything wrong here, but I do think this one's firmly in my camp. So it is not the expectation of the teams to bring a workforce development board partner to the table. That's actually our responsibility as JFF and New Profit. At the same time, you all are working on the challenge application. We're also in the process of further refining and recruiting a select number of pilot sites that will be able to work with the challenge winners to actually pilot and validate their tools. I will say, at least from my perspective, I would be super interested in seeing teams pull in case studies or examples where they might already be working with American Job Centers, or where they're already exploring partnerships with their own local workforce development board or their workforce development system, so that we can better understand the level of familiarity and opportunity that exists in that select case, and how that might be applied within the pilot sites and the validation effort that will be underway in the context of this project. So, Angela, correct me if I got any of that wrong.
No, I think you got it correct. The only thing I would clarify in the question that Tom asked was that they won't be offering an endorsement. They are going to be a validation site for you to actually test and validate your technology. And if it goes well, then of course they could offer an endorsement after the fact. So just want to be clear that they're just a pilot site to begin with. And if your technology goes well, we expect that they would become an endorser and also hopefully a potential customer. That's
great. Yeah, we're very excited about the workforce development boards. It's another way of looking at it, and I think we said this earlier, is it's almost a business channel for you. It's a potential new opportunity to reach new consumers, new beneficiaries. The difference is that we're doing a lot of the legwork to get you connected with them, and then giving you some awesome funding to be able to do that pilot. So hopefully that helps, and we look forward to, we'll have more information over the next few months about what you can expect with those pilots. Quick question about grant funding and its sources, whether it's government sources, private, or combination. My understanding is it's mostly private sources, but.
Yep, so the funding comes from private partners and high net worth individuals who are covering the cost of the funds.
Great. Question about the regions for the workshops. Why is the Northeast not included? Well, I live in the Northeast, so it wasn't, we don't have any kind of bias against regions. But we did pick the regions to really highlight areas that we want to make sure are encouraged and represented in the challenge. So they're just kind of guidelines. They're not, set rules. You don't have to be from the region to participate in one. It's just a focus to try to bring together people around similar areas. There is not one for the Northeast. Northeast gets a lot of attention in this work, so that's why we did that. But we do encourage you to participate in whatever other region might be applicable to your work. Question from Neba about whether someone from outside the US can apply to this challenge. I mentioned this earlier, you can apply, but you need to have a plan in your application for how you will go about bringing your product or innovation to a US state. One of the reasons that we have this requirement is because of the Workforce Development Board pilots. They are US-based entities, so we want to make sure that you are well positioned to work with them. But yes, you are welcome to submit an idea as long as you kind of have a plan for how you would bring it to the US. Any other remarks from Josh or Angela on that?
No, nothing to add there.
Great. Okay, Hassan had two questions here about the judging criteria and how it's weighted. So I'll answer that. The criteria that we have there are equally weighted. They 16.7% across the final solution. I can give you a little bit more information about who will be reviewing those. We do have a multi-step process for reviewing the applications that involves a number of people and organizations. However, most of that focuses on the judges who are listed on the website. Those are the individuals who will be reviewing your application, the actual words that you submit and any videos and other materials that you share. And they will be using, I think it's a 1-4 or 1-5 scale, a pretty traditional scale, to judge your criteria based on those, or judge your solution based on those criteria. So yeah, they will be aggregated together, and we do some standard normalization and everything to make sure that, you know, we eliminate outliers and all kinds of stuff like that. But that's probably too in the weeds for this conversation, but that is something that we do. And then another question, do you think that JFF has its priorities equally geared towards urban and rural areas for the workforce development and not unintentionally biased towards cities? I'll mention one thing. So our partners from MFF, from the Mortgage Family Foundation, aren't on here, but they are in particular very interested in rural workforce issues. So that's why we have that as one of the kind of bullets in the challenge description. And it is one of the things that we are looking for in some of the solutions that we'll select. Lastly, that's why we're having a solve-a-thon that's focused on rural communities, because we want to make sure that we focus on the unique needs of rural communities and in this work too. But Josh, I'll ask about JFF because I don't work there. And
yeah, no, I'll happily take that one on since it was directed at JFF. And I will say, Hassan, you know, this is something that Angela and I and the rest of the partners have been discussing and taking very seriously around how we're going to go about identifying our pilot sites differently maybe than other challenges or other large federal grant awards of the past. I think your point is exactly heard. These kinds of grand challenges sometimes too often favor the people with the most capital and the most customers. And I think that we're certainly committed to trying to make sure that there are opportunities created through this challenge to work with a very diverse set of not only customers but also communities, and trying to understand how those unique needs and issues of a rural community compare to an urban community, and how and where technology needs to be adjusted to meet those needs more appropriately. So Angela, I know you're passionate about this too, so feel free to add on.
Yeah, no, I just think this is like central to our like theory of action on why we're actually doing this validation with workforce sites. We want to understand what technologies work in what areas, and we want to understand the context. So when we're selecting the 5 cities, states, we're looking at that mix of blue states, red states, rural, urban, and we're doing that intentionally because we want to, at the end of this challenge, be able to compare the data and see what were the similarities and what were the differences. So you will absolutely see that we are pushing ourselves that we won't be biased towards cities, and that we will absolutely have some rural workforce boards in the mix of those 5. But thank you for asking that.
Hey, Patrick, we did gloss over a question here from Ida. I don't know if you can see that question.
Yeah, so Ida had a question about the Workforce Development Network and the slides that you offered, where you found, this is for you, Josh, where you found those graphics. They just reached their first contract and are interested in that, and then I can answer the IBM question.
Sure, so I think we can make those slides available. Those little charts were made by me. That's just geotag data from the workforce boards all across the country. But we can certainly make the slides available, Patrick, I think, so that applicants have an opportunity to revisit those. And congrats on your first WIOA contract. Very cool. But I am definitely interested, Patrick, in you and Angela responding to this question around the IBM in-kind assistance.
Yeah. So we are actually working on the exact suite of services and in-kind resources that IBM will provide. They've committed to that, but we're working across it's a large organization, so we're working across their work centers to determine what will be offered. As soon as we know that, we will share that out to applicants, but you can expect that the resources, the technical as well as software resources of IBM will be available in some form. And the approach that we're using there is to really get commitments across IBM's different work centers to work very closely with you on your needs. So kind of heavy on the consulting side of their services, which is a lot of what they do. So more to come on that, but it'll be a great opportunity to support your technical needs and operational needs as you consider, how to actually go about these pilots and expanding your work.
Yeah, and Patrick, I just want to double click on what you said. For innovators out there, you should begin thinking about, IBM and what they offer and what you might need to be really clear on that, because that's the first question. When we had a call with them, they were like, well, what do they need? We can do a lot of things. So really being specific about where they could add value to where you are and your particular product will be important.
Awesome. So last call on questions. I'll say a few more things, but if there's last minute questions here, feel free to get them in. We will probably end a little earlier if that's it. But a few things to remind you on. There are the upcoming Solvathon workshops. Those are open not only to you if you've attended this workshop, but really anyone who's passionate about workforce development issues. The more people, the merrier. Feel free to share those opportunities with others in your organizations, in your networks, and so on. You'll receive an email with more links and things to share that with your networks as well. The deadline to apply is November 8th, I believe. And that's what you should be marking for, to make sure that your application is complete. And then the other piece here is we do encourage you to submit your project, submit your idea earlier as soon as you can, as soon as you're ready, because you can then see the others may comment on it. It'll give us a better sense of what you're looking for. And generally, it's best to not wait until the last minute. So we encourage you to do that. You can expect an email and follow up from us with some of these links, the slides, and whatnot. But we, again, want to thank you so much for tuning in, for asking your questions, and for considering applying to this challenge. We look forward to working with some of you. Thank you again to Angela, Josh, Rachel, and Gabby, and all those who've tuned in for your participation today. We look forward to it and look forward to reading your submissions between now and November. I think that's it. We'll tune off here, but one more question about applications, how many we receive. Really depends, but we're expecting, around 300, maybe 400 submissions to this application based on some trends that we've seen so far, but we'll see. We're prepared to sort through many solutions. That's what we do. So do submit so that we can get a better sense of how many to expect. All right. Thank you all for tuning in.